Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down and this is my guitar. If you're just joining us, this is the 8th week looking at 4 on 6 by Wes Montgomery. I think we've got another 2 choruses to go after this one, and then we'll have a look at some of the comping ideas, and then that'll be it. So I think probably 11 lessons in all on this one, which is taking quite a while. I didn't think this was actually going to be this long, but I hear quite a lot of you are getting a lot out of this series, so I'm going to keep going for the time being. Sorry for the gap. I've had COVID again, and also been on tour in Europe with Joss Stone. So it's been a busy few weeks for me, but I'm back here and we're having a look at chorus number 7 in this particular tune this week. Before we jump into this chorus, which is all octaves, by the way, before we jump in, just want to say a big thanks to my patrons. As usual, you are the guys that keep, guys and girls actually, sorry, that keep the wheels rolling on this channel. So I just want to say a big thanks. So I'm just going to bring up my list. So big thanks to Matthew, Christoph, Henry, Eric, Enthusiast, I'm not sure who that is, but great name. Roland, Peter, Mason, Holm, Dave, Lisa, Darren, Oscar, Bill, P, and Manavi. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing all those names properly. Those are the guys that have just literally signed up in the last couple of weeks. So thanks so much. That's a huge markup on the membership on Patreon. So thanks so much for that, guys. If you want to support on Patreon, then the link is on the screen below. If you're wondering what Patreon is, it's basically a place where you can go and support me and what I'm doing here. And you get the benefits of having all of the transcriptions, chords, scales, arpeggios, exercise packs, anything that you see on the screen here, and some extra bits on there as well. And you also get the backing track that I created myself with Jamie Sefton, Matt Carter, and Joe Harris. And all of the other stuff that you see on the YouTube channel as well, that's all there as well for you to get. And that starts at $3. So that's like, you know, less than the price of a cup of coffee. So if you head over there, you can get all of that stuff and support me in the process. If you just want to do a one-off thanks, then you can buy me a coffee. There's a link below. But as always, just hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell if you want to get updates on when I release the next lesson. Let's get on with the lesson. So let's take a look at the first 4 bars of this 16-bar solo. Okay, so this is firmly in the Dorian area, okay? The reason why we know it's Dorian is because he's using this E natural here, whereas normally if it was G minor, which is the key of this piece, then it would be an E flat on there, and he's actually made the E a natural, which means that it's a Dorian scale, so it's a G Dorian. A G Dorian scale is the same as a major scale, just with a flat third and a flat 7. It's quite easy to play. In the last lesson, we actually looked at the Dorian scale, so I'm not going to show you that here. Just go back and look at the previous lesson. But here is the blues scale in octaves. And the other thing that he's actually using on here as well is some blues material as well. And also on there, he's using this technique that is known as pivoting. Pivoting is basically where you've got a line that's kind of going off at the top. So if you imagine there's a line here, but you're pivoting off a note that's below. So this line is independent. This is the main line here. And then below is kind of bouncing off of notes below. And he does it once, and it would be nice if he continued it, and I'll show you in a second an example of me actually continuing this idea all the way through. But the line itself that he's playing is this chromatic line going down all the way through. So okay, so he's going down from that Dorian note all the way chromatically So that's a note that's not in the actual scale itself at all. And then this is all blues stuff there, and then coming to rest there. So this is his line, but he bounces off this note. So, okay. So that's a kind of enclosure, but we call it kind of pivoting. And here's an example of me actually going further down and continuing that idea, because it's quite a nice idea, and lots of guitarists use this. I use this all the time. It's actually a technique that you see readily used in Brazilian music, so samba, bossa, that kind of thing. So it's a technique definitely worth using if you want to kind of jump it into your soloing as a small little vibe in your solo. You obviously don't have to use it exclusively through. You can see Wes here is actually just jumping into it and jumping out again. So here's the example of me actually continuing that idea on. Here it is. The other thing to notice here that he's kind of doing is he's repeating a line. Kind of changes the rhythm ever so slightly, but he repeats a line here, and that's a good thing to take away in your solos, is to kind of have some repetition within there, and you can change it around a little bit and make it more interesting by, you know, changing the rhythm a little bit. So that's something that you can take away from this as well. It's a really cool idea and gives you a lot of mileage out of an idea, rather than kind of having to find ideas for every single bar. That's kind of one of the things that you know, you need to really try and hone in your soloing, is trying to be economical, as I call it, with your ideas, and try and make them last as long as possible. Okay, let's move on to the next 4 bars. Okay, so here is the car crash of 2 5s that never reach their 1s. So here we've got another thing where he's pivoting off of the relative major here. So it kind of seems like he's kind of ignoring every other 2 5. So he references the first 2 5, the one that's in B flat, so C minor 7 to F9 or F7, and the relative major that he's actually using there. He's referencing the relative major of C minor. The relative major of C minor is E flat major, and that's what he's using over the top of this first bar there. So that is going to be an E flat major 7. And obviously that relative major, the reason why he's using it is because it opens up a few extensions from the C minor. So you've got the flat 3rd there for the E flat. You've got the 5th. You've got the flat 7 there. And then there, it's opened up the extension. If we put the major 7 of E flat in there, over the top of that C minor chord underneath, that D acts as the 9th. So we get this kind of sound over the top of it. And that's a really nice idea to use. So relative major is something that we've unpacked before in quite a few of the previous lessons, but he's using it here with octaves. So here's the 2 relative majors that he's using. So as I said, the first 2 5 he references, the 2 5 in B flat. The second one he kind of ignores. And then the third one, the 2 5 in G, he references and uses the relative major of A minor, which is C major 7. And so he uses that one. And there's a couple of little bits at the end, which we'll unpack in a second. But here's the 2 relative major arpeggios, E flat major 7 and C major 7. Now, the little bit at the end seems a little bit weird, that... Okay, there. But essentially what he's doing there is it's all around the E flat minor chord. So we know that it goes a 2 5 in D flat major. So E flat minor to A7. And what he's referencing here, he's kind of going in and out of the minor 3rd, and then the flat 7 of E flat there, which is D flat, and then going down A flat to G flat, which is referencing that A flat 7 chord. So there, that's a little bit more integrated, and he's actually referencing both those chords, which is quite difficult to do at that kind of speed. So do be careful if you're going to try and attempt that and you've only just jumped into this tune. What I would probably try and do is something along the lines of kind of taking 2 bars at a time with a break after the first and the 3rd bar. So here's an example of me doing that. So in the first bar, I'm referencing E flat major 7 as the relative major of C minor, and then I take a break. And then in the third bar, I'm referencing C major 7 as a relative minor of the A minor, relative major of the A minor, and then I take a break after that. Okay, let's take a look at the next 4 bars. Okay, in the next 4 bars, we see him using some G minor 7 arpeggio stuff, and also adding in some Dorian notes and also some outside notes as well. And kind of continuing on a little bit of that pivoting. Here is a G minor 7 arpeggio taken all the way through this position, what I would call position 1, and also position 2, through position 3 on the string sets 3 and 1, and then up into position 4 as well. So I'm actually spanning the entire guitar neck. It's a very good arpeggio exercise to learn so that you can actually play some of these ideas that Wes is using. So here's that. So just unpacking what he's doing here. The first thing that he does here is a straight G minor 7 arpeggio, starting on the D, D, G, B flat, D, and then straight up through F and G to a G, make it a G minor 7 arpeggio. And then a little bit of enclosure. So through that Dorian note. And he's just, I mean, this note here, D sharp, it's a sharp 5 over the top of a minor chord. I don't think there's any theory there at all, because that would just give this kind of sound there, which is a little bit too modern really for Wes. I think really what he's doing there is just trying to mimic that idea of that semitonal idea. And you could continue it on down like that if you wanted to. I don't think there's any theory in it at all. He's literally just continuing the idea down and then jumping down to that G there. So there's a little bit of enclosure like we used earlier on that pivoting, but nothing massively out there. It's pretty much just a G minor 7 arpeggio. So it's really useful that you learn that G minor 7 arpeggio exercise that I just showed you. So as always, here's an example of me using that idea and creating something new with it. Let's take a look at the next 4 bars, the last 4 bars. Okay, so here there's something really interesting happening just before, so on the pickup to the last 4 bars. So he's anticipating that B flat major 7, but with something weird, B flat minor pentatonic, which is this in octaves. Why would he be doing that? Because that's going to create a clash. And creating a clash creates tension, which he can then resolve with the 2-5, the minor 2-5 that's coming up. Lots of blues guitarists do this, where they'll play B flat minor or a minor over the top of a major, so they'll mix and match. And you can see here that he doesn't actually resolve it on the B flat. He actually resolves it later on. But here's an example of me resolving that with the major third. So basically what a lot of blues guitarists would do is they'd try and create that tension by playing a minor pentatonic over the top of a major chord, but then they'd resolve it by hitting that major third really clearly, just like this. So that first thing that Wes plays, that's very clearly a minor blues scale, and then to create that tension, he then resolves it at the very end, which is a really, really tricky line to play at speed. So really do slow that down to practice like I just showed you there. What he's actually doing there is actually outlining some notes from within the G natural minor there. So it looks like he's outlining an E flat major 7 there, but what he's actually doing is thinking more along the lines of G minor pentatonic, and he's just approaching notes from either above or below there, like that one. So approaching it as semitone. Okay, and obviously he ends on that note there, which is the 4th of G minor, and that's actually quite a tense note. It's not a resolved note, but then he resolves it really clearly with the beginning of the next bar. Okay, so if you want to create some tension at the end of your solo so that you can resolve it on bar 1 of the next head, if you're going to continue on, then do something like Wes just did there, where he created a really nice kind of tense run up there with lots and lots of chromaticism approaching from below for every note of the minor pentatonic. And then instead of landing on a chord tone like one of these, he's landing actually on the fourth there. So that's going to create tension. It needs to be resolved, and he resolves it by going dominant, 5, that D, back to G, back to the 1 there. So try that in your own soloing. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you have a really good time practicing this stuff. The main takeaways here are to make sure that you know some of your scales and your arpeggios, basically, for this stuff, because that's what Wes is using as his vocabulary for this particular solo. The other thing to look at as well is the relative major, if you want to be able to try and tackle that car crash of 2 5s in bars 5 to 8 of each head. So it's worth making sure that you've got a plan for that, whether you're going to use a relative major or whether you're going to, kind of just reference one bar and then have a break and then another bar and have a break, or whether you're going to try and tackle all of them. I would suggest that if you're just starting out on this, that you don't tackle all 4 bars and try and make a line across all 4 bars. I would just go for a line on one bar, a break, and another line and another break there. And the relative major is a good way of doing that because it gives you some of the extensions. It sounds nice and sophisticated, but you're not having to do much. So other than that, have a nice week practicing this stuff. I'll probably be back actually in about 2 weeks with the next one. And then we'll try and finish off the last head and then have a look at some comping ideas for what Wes does with Tommy Flanagan over the top of this. So have a great week practicing. Happy practicing, and I'll see you next time. Bye.